Hello, folks. In this episode, I'm going to be giving you my opinion, or I don't know how to say, my review of the Communist Manifesto. Now, there are few things, like there are few other books in the history of the world that are, or that have had the evil consequence that the Communist Manifesto book have had. Now I've read this book before. It was a couple years ago. I've also seen a lot of documentaries and videos, both on YouTube and also like professional documentaries on the Soviet regime and the rule of previously Lenin and then Stalin. Then I've heard a couple other information about the application of the Communist Party in China. The it seems like a small thing to say that the application of communism has been tragical. Like that doesn't even come close to explaining just about how that doesn't come close to explaining just about how horrible the whole thing has been. Um, I am from Albania, and Albania has been under communist regime for 50 years, up until from 1940, I think, up until 1990. People were basically slaves. As far as much information that I have, because communists were also very isolated and they never spread information. From that little information that I have, there wasn't any mass murder in Albania, but basically speaking, people were slaves. They were hungry all the time. They I don't know. They had no amount of individuality. Let's say everything was for the mother party. Everything that you ever did was to serve the mother party, and so on and so forth. Uh, okay, so I think as a preface for what we are about to read, I have given. Okay, so let's say this. In the first years of the implementation of communism in Russia, in Ukraine, 6 million peasants died out of starvation because the party told them so, because they implemented communism. In China, the number of victims in civilian casualties, that is, of course, always civilian casualties, is somewhere between 20 million and 100 million citizens. You see, this is what I mean. These numbers are so big, you can't even imagine them. Like, what does 100 million people dead because of an ideology mean? How does that work? How exactly? You see, it's too much. That's why I say tragic doesn't even explain this stuff perfectly. Okay, so I think let's begin. Manifesto of the Communist Party. I actually don't know what manifesto means, but I'm assuming it's like the main fundamental logic of a certain thing. For example, Manifesto of the Communist Party is the main logic by which every action of the Communist Party is to be based upon. This is what I think. Okay, so let's go. A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism. so I dislike it since the first sentence. So, but let's go. All the powers of all Europe have entered into a holy alliance to exorcise this specter. Pope and Tsar, Metternich and Guizot, French radicals, and German police spies. So what he's saying here is that communism is the righteous ideology to be implemented, and everybody else is just stupid and wrong. So like the Pope, the Tsar, the Metternich, the Guizot, the French radical, and German police spies. They're all dumb. They're all dumb, and they're waiting to be enlightened by the Communist Party. so okay. Where is a party in opposition that has not been decried as communistic by its opponents in power? Where is the opposition that has not hurled back the branding reproach of communism against the more advanced opposition parties, as well as against its reactionary adversaries? I don't know what reactionary adversaries are. Okay, so let's read this. Let's read this carefully. I actually take a lot of entertainment from this kind of work because I can almost like taste the mistake in every sentence. But anyway, I don't. Okay, so let's forget about it. Okay, so let's read it sentence for sentence and then see where we get from there. Where is the party in opposition that has not been decried as communistic by its opponents in power? Okay, I think he means by this is that communism is rising, is being very powerful. So like all of the opponents in power are against communism. This is what he's saying. So communism has taken a lot of influence. This is how I understand that. Which only goes to show just about how dumb people are. Like, go away. Like that sentence only goes to show just about how desperate, just about how desperate people were in like the late 19th century, early 20th century. Where is the opposition that has not hurled back the branding reproach of communism? Branding reproach. So like communism is rewriting the way how things should be. Against the more advanced opposition parties, as well as against its reactionary adversaries. So I don't know what reactionary adversaries means, but I'm assuming it's like people who react. That's stupid, okay. Against the more advanced opposition parties. Okay, so what he's saying here is just that communism has gained a lot of influence. That's what these two questions mean. He's like very passionate to say these, without understanding that both of these things only mean that people are very ignorant, nothing else. Who else approaches communism as an actual possibility? Manifesto, anyhow. Two things result from this fact. Communism is already acknowledged by all European powers to be itself a power. So, okay, okay. It is high time that communists should openly, in the face of the whole world, publish their views, their aims, their tendencies, amid their nursery tale of the spectre of communism with the manifesto of the party itself. No. To this end, communists of various nationalities have assembled in London and sketched the following manifesto to be published in English, French, German, Italian, Flemish, Danish languages. So two things result from this fact, says the man, that the Communist Party must be taken under account, is basically his idea. So it has gained a lot of influence, and now you are to listen to what they say, which is wrong, by the way. So the idea is that the Communist Party says nothing which is right, and it has gained influence for nothing more than the insanity of the time in which it was implemented. Because it has gained a lot of influence doesn't mean that the thing itself is right. So to hear the Communist Manifesto is one thing, but to say that, for example, the thing itself is a possibility, it's a crazy thing. Okay. Bourgeoisie, which is what they mean, by the way. So when he says this, he also means like, I am going to say all of my things because I'm right about them. And so the other people are wrong because they're stupid and whatever. Bourgeoisie and proletarians. So this is, I think, high class and small class. So we have in today's society, I'm not really sure, but people usually say like rich class, middle class, and then working class. I think this is how they say it. But in the 19th century or the 20th century, they were bourgeoisie and proletarian, which I don't even know what these words mean. I assume they are in French. Bourgeoisie, nobody would read this bourgeoisie but the French. And proletarians, I don't, whatever. But bourgeoisie is a class of modern capitalists, the owner of the means of social production, employers of wages. You should put them here. You shouldn't make them as notes. By proletariat, the class of modern wage laborers who having no means of production are reduced to selling their labor in order to live. What? Let me read this again. Okay, so it says, bourgeoisie is then the class of modern capitalists, owners of the means of social production. What is social production? Let's just say, I don't understand social production, but I'm gonna say production. Owner of the means of production. And employers of wage labor, okay? So bourgeoisie is the boss, proletariat is the employer. Is that what I'm getting? Probably not. He probably means something here, but I don't get it. He starts, first sentence in. Look at this shit. Oh, this is so fun. The history of all hitherto existent society is the history of class struggles. It's like, I disagree with you completely, man. I disagree with you completely, man. This is class struggles is one of the things. The history of all hitherto. How the fuck do you explain then dictatorship or like psychopaths? They don't belong to a class. Anyhow, the history of all hitherto, I think it means up to this moment. So the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles, which is like wrong. This is completely incorrect. That is all written history. The prehistory, the social organization, all but unknown. Since then, August von Haxthusen discovered common ownership of land. What the fuck? Village communists were found to be or to have been the primitive form of society everywhere from India to... Wait, what is this? That is all written history. The history of all hitherto existing society. All written history. So since when books were invented and people started keeping notes about society, then everything is history of class struggles, which it isn't, by the way. I cannot stretch this enough. That is all written history. Okay? In 1847, the prehistory of society, the social organization existing previous to recorded history, all but unknown. Was. I think you need to say was all but unknown. Since then, August von Haxthusen discovered common ownership of land in Russia. George Ludwig proved it to be the social foundation from which all Teutonic races started in history, and by, village communities were found to be or to have been the primitive form of society everywhere from India to Ireland. The inner organization of this primitive communistic society was laid bare, in its typical form, by Lewis Henry Morgan, crowning discovery of the true nature of the gents and its what is happening. The inner organization of this primitive community society was laid bare in its typical form by crowning discovery of the true nature of the gents and its relation to the tribe. With the dissolution of the primeval communities, society begins to be differentiated into separate and finally antagonistic classes. Oh, so what he's saying here, look what a motherfucker. He's saying, okay, so basically the root of all human existence, he's saying, of all human societies is living together in communities. So not every human being having its own self, but everybody living together. This is what he's saying here. So basically what I'm getting here is that not every farmer should have his own land, but all farmers should have a common piece of land, which seems like innocent, because that is all that is given in this study here. But if you were to actually implement that, you would see that this would be what do they call it? Equity? I don't know. It's like equality of outcome. I think it's called equity. So all villagers work together for a common goal, which is not a bad thing. But the point is that one villager works less and another one works more. So why should they both have the same result, or the same profit? This is basically the communistic ideology, which is wrong. Everything is wrong here. With the dissolution of the primal, antagonistic classes became antagonistic. So, for example, people who were rich started getting richer, and people who were poor started getting poorer. This is why it is antagonistic classes. So people started fighting each other because they are, they're people, they're dumb, they don't have regulations, or they don't know the most efficient way, or they don't know how to fight against abuse. People just don't know how to do it. But it's not that there is a class separation that does that. This is not the cause. The class is not the cause for the existence of conflict. So this is wrong. I have attempted to retrace the dissolution in the origin of the family. All right. So, first sentence in, first page, the history of all hitherto existing society. So, first of all, he has the wrong idea for what society is. And it says, is the history of class struggle. So basically what he's saying is that society is classes. That's what he's saying. Society is made out of classes. So we have top class, second top class, and then third, fourth, until you get to people. And then he says, the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Which is wrong, because the history of existing society is not just that. There are way too many things. I took you the example of the psychopath. So everybody lives in an economical or political science. Everybody lives in an economical or political class, says the communist, except for people who don't. So it's like everybody wants to be rich, everybody wants to be powerful, except there are people who just want to destroy other people. So that's like dictators, or I don't know, Joker type material. Free man and slave, patrician and plebeian. Patrician is like rich, plebeian is like peasant. Lord and serf, guild master and journeyman. In a word, oppressor and oppressed. Look. Stood in constant opposition to one another, carried on an uninterrupted, now hidden, now open fight, a fight that each time ended either in a revolutionary reconstitution of a society at large or in the common ruin of the contending classes. So, what the fuck? Just a second. Here I was in 13. Okay, so oppressor and oppressed. You have to understand here. There's something here that I think should be said just to clarify. So, all is the word which you should take emphasis in this entire paragraph. The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggle. Like, this is not true. Not all of it is like this. There have definitely been men who were free and men who were slaves, rich and poor, lord and serf, and whatever he says. These have definitely existed. There is no doubt about it. And these things exist currently in the 21st century that we live. There are actually slaves being sold on the black market, and there are actually free people living in democratic states. So the idea is that these things exist. They don't not exist, and the fact that there would be a fight between them is like the default behavior. Of course they will fight one another. Why would the slave not want to be free? Why would the poor man not want to be a rich man? These things are self-explanatory. The problem here is that he puts everything into this idea, so like freeman and slave. He puts everything into oppressor and oppressed. So there are only two states in which you can exist. You're either an oppressor, you're either hurting other people, or you are either oppressed, being hurt by other people. So there's nothing else. Because this is what he's saying, like right here. The history is history of class struggles, which it isn't, and then everybody, oppressor and oppressed, were in constant fight to one another. So like, this is incorrect. There are more than this. Not all is that. In the earlier epochs of history, says the man, we find almost everywhere a complicated arrangement of society in various orders. A manifold, I don't think it's complicated. I think the earlier epochs of history are actually quite simple. They are simple, they are actually fundamental, not even complicated. A manifold gradation of social rank. What's wrong with social rank? In ancient Rome we have patricians, knights, plebeians, slaves. In the Middle Ages, feudal lords, vassals, guildmasters, whatever serfs. In almost all of these classes, again, subordinate gradations. Subordinate gradations, I think he means here serfs and slaves. Subordinate, so it's like people that are always put... people who are being called subhuman, or people who are being called like they are not free, they are not individual human beings. So this is what I think he's saying. But he doesn't understand that the way how these things work is not because people want them to work that way. It's not people's desire. It's their complete ignorance and complete incapability to fight. The slave does not want to be enslaved. But how many of the free men want to keep slaves? It's like you're taking completely out of context the time in which these things were implemented. For example, in America, you know that America was, I don't know if I should say mostly built, but a lot of slave work has been put into building the USA. So this is true. The idea is that we are now living the 21st century, and it's not the same as it used to be before. So you cannot actually just look at somebody who is, I don't know how to say, so most of the slaves were black, so you cannot look at somebody who is white now and say you are a slave owner. But this is basically what he's saying here, which is crazy, right? Who doesn't understand this? So he's saying that in all of these social ranks, there was a subordinate gradation. If I understand it correctly, if he means that this is the subhuman idea, the slave should be part of society, which is I think something that like New Age racists say, subordinate gradation. So anyhow, this is wrong, by the way. This is wrong because it doesn't take context under appreciation. The modern bourgeoisie society that has sprouted from the ruins of feudal society has not done away with class antagonism. It has but established new classes, new conditions of oppression, new forms of struggle in places of the old ones. Which again is wrong. It's like, I don't even know what I'm reading, man, for real. It's like every time I read one of these things, you're just wrong. There's nothing right in what you're saying. It's like, because of all, this is like the most important word in this entire ideology. It's true that there are class antagonisms. I personally don't disagree with this. I see it everywhere. So like my boss should have a car that is worth 10 times the price of mine. And he should make 10 times as much profit as I do, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that I'm a fucking slave. So the idea is that, what does he say? The modern bourgeoisie society has not done away with class antagonism. Yes, but it has lowered them profoundly. So it's not the same thing. It's not oppression and oppressed. I'm not oppressed at my workplace. I just dislike, for example, that my boss should earn as much as he does, when in fact it's all the employees who put the work. So it's a weird thing, but it's not oppression. I'm not being oppressed. I could at any time leave this job and get another. I'm not being oppressed. It's not. This is incorrect. Oppression and oppressed. Oh, that was just the first page. I wanted to. All right. So this is page 21. I wanted to cover the first chapter, but I think it's gonna take a lot of time. All right, so it's like 6 pages. All right. Our epoch, the epoch of the bourgeoisie, possesses, however, this distinct feature. It has simplified class antagonisms. Society as a whole is more and more splitting up into two great hostile camps, into two great classes directly facing each other, which is incorrect. This is, again, perhaps in his time this was more clear, but still, it's incorrect. This is not right. From the serfs of the Middle Ages sprang the chartered burghers of the earliest towns. From these burgesses, the first element of the bourgeoisie were developed. I have no idea of the historical evidence of what he's saying, but he's saying, from the serfs of the Middle Ages. So, he's saying that bourgeoisie was first serf, and by serf he means servant, like the equivalent of slave. From the serf of Middle Ages sprang the chartered burghers of the earliest towns. Of the earliest. I think there should be 2 F's here. Of the earliest towns. From these burgesses, the first element of the bourgeoisie. Okay. The discovery of America, the rounding of the Cape, I don't know what this means, opened up fresh ground for the rising bourgeoisie. Okay, the East Indian and Chinese markets, the colonization of America, trade with the colonies, the increase in the means of exchange, any commodities generally, gave to commerce navigation impulse never known before, which is true, and thereby to the revolutionary element in the tottering feudal society, a rapid development. So, what I'm getting here, which is still wrong, if I understand this correctly, because some words here I just don't get, but if I understand correctly, he's saying that with the discovery of the new land, so this was the Americas, and opening the trade with other countries, I should say, like Chinese, India, Japan, and whatever, this created like what is he saying? It gave to commerce an impulse never before known. So the idea is that trade became much more stronger by then, and people started getting richer. But the idea is that people started getting richer, according to him, and people who were poor started getting way poorer. So this created like a bourgeoisie and proletariat were like getting very polarized. So one is very good and the other is very bad. Very rich, very poor, very powerful, very unpowerful. This is how I understand this, which I disagree with, by the way. The more commerce there is, the more people there are that will join the commerce and become rich. So I don't see this at all. If a few people gain the monopoly on something, that's a different story. But monopoly is illegal, actually. So you cannot have a monopoly. Monopoly will actually monopoly will create exactly this, but you are not being told that, not at least in the 21st century, but I don't even think before, you were told that monopoly is a good thing. Only people who own the monopoly said that monopoly is a good thing. Okay, so the feudal system of industry, in which industrial production was you see, I knew it. I knew he meant monopoly. See? The feudal system of industry, in which industrial production was monopolized by closed guilds, now no longer sufficed for the growing wants of the new markets. The manufacturing system took its place. The guild masters were pushed on one side by the manufacturing middle class, okay, so there are not only two, so there's middle class. Division of labor between the different corporate guilds vanished in the face of division of labor in each single workshop. Alright. Let's see this. Okay, so first sentence means that the feudalism that existed up until that time wasn't enough to, it did not produce enough products for the new markets that were created. So there was a deficiency in product. There was a lot of demand, but not products. There was a lot of demand, but not products. This is what this means. The manufacturing system took its place. Okay, so we have to create a lot of products. The guild masters were pushed on one side by the middle class. What the fuck is guild master? Division of labor between the different corporate guilds vanished in the face of division of labor in each single workshop. Okay, I don't really get it. So different corporates were no longer fighting with one another, rather than they were fighting with their own self. So the idea is it was more difficult. Okay, so this means that division of labor in each single workshop, in every corporation, I assume. Okay, well, I don't understand. I don't see how this is wrong, but he probably means it. He probably means it in the following paragraphs how this is wrong, but I don't see it anyhow. Meantime, the markets kept ever growing, the demand ever rising. Okay, this is what is going to happen. Even manufacturer no longer sufficed. Manufacturers. Need the nest here. Even manufacturers no longer sufficed. Thereupon, steam and machinery revolutionized industrial production. All right? The place of manufacture was taken by the giant, modern industry. The place of the industrial middle class by industrial millionaires. The leaders of the whole industrial armies, the modern bourgeoisie. You see, I've read some history. I'm not really sure of how it works, but I have read some history. So the idea for what economy is concerned is to always bring the most efficient way that gives me the most profit. This is what people have done since the beginning of time. So the Industrial Revolution, when I first read about it, it was not only it was not only economical, so it was also like scientifical. So the Industrial Revolution brought with itself like I think it was the internal combustion engine or the coal engine used in trains or whatever. So, you know, this wasn't just economical as he puts it, by which he's wrong, by the way. Okay, so the place of middle class by millionaires, the leader of the whole industrial armies, the modern bourgeoisie. Yo, look at my screen. Why is it doing this? Okay, bourgeoisie is the evil, what he says. Bourgeoisie is the root of all evil, as he says it. Modern industry has established the world market, for which the discovery of America paved the way. Okay, the market has given an immense development to commerce, to navigation. Okay, this development reacted on the extension of industry. Okay, what does the reacted mean? How has it reacted? And in proportion as industry extended, in the same proportion the bourgeoisie developed, increased in capital and pushed in the background every class handed down from the Middle Ages. Okay, so he's like trying to explain here what was the steps, what were the steps that were taken into making the bourgeoisie that influential, that powerful, and that rich. This is the idea. We see therefore how the modern bourgeoisie is itself the product of a long course of development, of a series of revolutions in the modes of production and exchange. I still don't understand where is the mistake here. Like, okay, he means to say that they are evil, but I don't get it. Where is it? Like, these things have happened. Okay, but like what? So what? Okay, so each step in the development of the bourgeoisie was accompanied by a corresponding political advance of that class. Okay. An oppressed class under the sway of feudal nobility, an armed and self-governing association in the middle commune. Here, independent urban republic, as in Italy and Germany. There, taxable third estate of the monarchy, as in France. Afterwards, in the period of manufacturing proper, serving either the semi-feudal or the absolute monarchy as a counterpoise. What the fuck is this? Oh, what are these sentences? Okay, again, why would you write like this? An oppressed class under the sway of the feudal nobility. An armed and self-governing association in the medieval commune. Here, independent urban republic. There, taxable third estate. Afterwards, serving as semi-feudal or the absolute monarchy as a counterpoise, and in fact, cornerstone of great monarchies. The bourgeoisie has, at last, since the establishment, conquered for itself in the modern representative state exclusive political sway. Okay, so he's saying here that, yeah, exactly. Long course of development. No, this one. Each step in the development of the bourgeoisie was accompanied by a corresponding political advance. Okay, so the more rich they got, the more politically influential they got. Okay. The executive of the modern state is but a committee for managing the common affairs of the whole bourgeoisie. So he's saying that, what I understand at least, is that rich people, rich people, have infiltrated the state, and so now the state answers to them. The executive of the modern state, the executive, the man who does things, in the modern state is a committee for managing the common affairs of the whole bourgeoisie. You see, there's a distinction there between money and power, a distinction that this man is making in a very radical way, but he's actually incorrect. How can you be powerful without being rich? It's like, you're wrong, man. You're wrong. You're wrong to say that they are two separate things. Two things which have no connection with one another. They definitely have a connection with one another. If you are a powerful man, but you have absolutely no kind of money, you can never fund anything, you can never start a movement, you can never do anything. You have to be rich. The bourgeoisie, historically, has played the most revolutionary part. Okay? The bourgeoisie, wherever it has got the upper hand, has put an end to all feudal, patriarchal, idyllic relationships. I don't know what he means. I'm hearing a lot of patriarchy, for example, from the left wingers today in the Western civilization. I actually don't know what this means, patriarchal. So I know that it means man ruling, but I don't think it's just that. So this is what I know it to be, but I don't think it's just that. Has put an end to all of this. It has pitilessly torn asunder the motley feudal ties that bound man to his natural superiors. So this is the subhuman idea that I told you before, the racist ideology. And has left remaining no other nexus between man and man than naked self-interest, then callous cash payment. Well, actually, you're wrong. Yeah, you're actually wrong. So he says, has left remaining no other nexus between man and man than naked self-interest. So what he's saying here is that a lot of good things have come out of the bourgeoisie, but the actual bad thing that has come out of it is that it has left nothing more connection between two people than self-interest, naked self-interest, cash payment. So everything he says serves money, which is incorrect, because not everything serves money. It can't. Not that it doesn't. It cannot. You cannot do that. One idea is people who are actually righteous and who do the right thing. Another one is people who are psychopathic. Another one is people who have intelligence. So like these are all examples in which go against naked self-interest. Okay. It has drawn the most heavenly ecstasies of religious fervor, chivalrous enthusiasm, Philistine sentimentalism in the icy water of egotistical calculation. So what he means to say here by these words is that there is no more, so it has drowned religion. There is no more religion, chivalry, or sentimentalism, and they have all become calculation for ego. So they have all become a means for somebody else to get ahead in the world. This is what this means, which is mistaken because everybody wants to get ahead in the world. This is actually wrong for that reason. It has resolved personal worth into exchange value. And in place of the numberless indefeasible chartered freedoms, has set up that single unconscionable freedom, free trade. In one word, for exploitation, veiled by religious and political illusions, it has substituted naked, shameless, direct, brutal exploitation. I don't understand this. Let me reread it again. Yeah, this shit, there's no way how I can do... There's no way how I can do the first chapter here. It's gonna take a lot of time. But whatever, I'm gonna do it. It has resolved personal worth into exchange value, which is incorrect. Incorrect. You know why this is incorrect? I've actually thought about this. For example, in the 21st century in capitalism, you see a lot of Instagram models. So I've thought about that for a while. And if I was to follow exactly this sentence, then I would say that women have sold their bodies for fame or for monetary profit. But you see, that's not women. That's certain specific women who are not bothered by that sort of thing. It's like a modern era prostitution. You're showing your lady forms, like your butt and your boobs and whatever, in a very sexually attractive way. But not all women are doing that. So this is what is wrong. He says that it has resolved personal worth into exchange value, meaning that there is none. There is no more personal worth. So everything has been changed into exchange value, which is mistaken. Right? For the reason that I just told you. There are people who do anything for money, but not all people follow that ideology and do everything for money. It's like, this is wrong. Okay, free trade, whatever. The bourgeoisie has stripped off its halo every occupation honored and looked up to with reverent awe. Okay, so the bourgeoisie has made it so that there are no looked up occupations, like for example, I don't know, scientist, I don't know. It has converted the physician, the lawyer, the priest, the poet, the man of science into its paid wage laborers, which is incorrect, because you've never had, until the implementation of capitalism, you've never had as much development as any of these professions would want. So like the man of science, is completely stupid to say that scientists have been in much better times before the implementation of capitalism. It's like scientists were suffering badly. Poets needed, I don't know, poets are like very sentimental people. And I don't know if this applies to poets. How is the poet, for example, if a poet makes a book, or a poem or whatever, and he sells it, he gets a lot of profit from it. But this doesn't mean that the poet himself should make a work which only serves the purpose of selling. It's like, it's a different story. And the same for all the others. So capitalism has not made it such that the only work that you do must be for money. That is incorrect. You get to work with something that you want to and find a way how to make that into money. which is not a bad thing. You don't want, I don't know how to say, it's not a bad thing to want to be rich. To be rich, to be successful, to be powerful. These are not bad things. What he's saying here is that the capitalism or the bourgeoisie has made it so that they are the only things, which is incorrect, because they are not, because they can't be. Has torn away from family sentimental veil, has reduced family relation to a mere money relation, which is incorrect. So this is completely incorrect. Where was this even seen? How is this even, like, I don't know, remotely true? How is this true? How has family been reduced to a mere money relation? That only works to people with mental deficiencies, these money relations. Like, I don't know how to say, like sociopaths or spoiled people, or I don't know who. No people do this. There are only specific individuals who reduce everything to money relation. So the bourgeoisie has disclosed how it came to pass that the brutal display of vigor in the Middle Ages, which reactionaries so much admire, found its fitting complement in the most slothful indolence. Who is slothful here? Bourgeoisie is not slothful. It has been the first to show what man's activity can bring about. It has accomplished wonders far surpassing Egyptian pyramids, Roman aqueducts, and Gothic cathedrals. It has conducted expeditions that put in the shade all former exodus of nations and crusades. Okay. I actually don't get this one. I don't like the way how he writes, by the way. A lot of things are vague. I don't get this. Is he like insulting or complimenting the bourgeoisie? I don't get it. Let me read it again. The bourgeoisie has disclosed how it came to pass that the brutal display of vigor in the Middle Ages, which reactionaries so much admire, I don't know what reactionaries are, found its fitting complement in the most slothful indolence. It has been the first to show what man's activity can bring about. So like it's a good thing. I don't get it. Is he trying to passively aggressively insult them? So like the bourgeoisie has been the first to show what man's activity can bring about, but also they've only done this by pushing people into money and power games. I don't know. I don't get it. I actually don't get this paragraph. The bourgeoisie cannot exist without constantly revolutionizing the instruments of production. That is called change and progress, bitch. It's not called whatever you mean. You want to change. Do you not want to change? Is there anything that you find to be stable? And thereby the relations of production, and with them the whole relations of society. But why would you say this? If you change the means of production, you've changed the whole relations of society. I don't see the connection. So if I'm going to work today, so I work as a software developer. So if I go to work today and I work with JavaScript, which is a programming language, and tomorrow you say we have a better language, does this mean that you have revolutionized the whole relation of society? No, man. I'm just gonna learn the new tool. I don't think it revolutionizes the whole relations of society every time something new comes about. So for example, social media is one that has revolutionized society, but I don't think it has revolutionized it in a good way, because people who have created social media have not found a way how to properly implement it. And so they've I don't know, well, okay, let's say they have found like for profit, they've made it so that data should be sold there should be no privacy, people should be spied all the time, etc. So they've actually applied it in an unethical way, the social media. So that's one way how it does. But that all of them are this way, as I said before, it's like all is the emphasis word here. So I disagree with this one as well. I disagree with everything here, by the way. Because I disagree with the man and his work in a fundamental principle, and that's the first sentence here. Where is it? This one. There are classes, there are class struggles. The history of all existing society is not that of class struggles, because everything else is based on this. So I actually disagree. He says here, conservation of the old modes of production in unaltered form was, on the contrary, the first condition of existence for all industry. Okay, constant revolutionizing of production, uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions, everlasting uncertainty and agitation distinguish the bourgeoisie epoch from all the earlier ones. Okay, so up so far you've only been complimenting it. All fixed, fast frozen relations with their train of ancient and venerable prejudices and opinions are swept away. All new formed ones became antiquated before they can ossify. I don't know what that means. All that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profaned, and man is at last compelled to face with sober senses his real conditions of life and his relations with his kind. No, man, you're wrong. You're wrong, and it was proven that you're wrong by implementing. It's like, that's not the case. That's not the case following reason, and that's not the case following practice. Not even theory, not even practice, are you right? The need of a constantly expanding market for its products chases the bourgeoisie over the entire surface of the globe. It must nestle everywhere, settle everywhere, establish connections everywhere. But why is this wrong? I don't understand what he's trying to say. The need of a constantly expanding market for its products chases the bourgeoisie over the entire surface of the globe, which it does, of course it does. There should be open trade between countries. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with trade? If there is no trade between countries, should there also be no trade between people of inside the country? I mean, what's the problem? There should be no import and export, according to the almighty Karl Marx and Engels. Do establish connections everywhere. What's wrong with connections? The bourgeoisie has, through its exploitation of the world market, given a cosmopolitan character to production and consumption. To the great chagrin of reactionists, it has drawn, I don't know what this means, by the way, I don't even know what chagrin or reaction is. To the great chagrin of reactionists, it has drawn from under the feet of industry the national ground on which it stood. All established national industries have been destroyed or are daily being destroyed. They are dislodged by new industries whose introduction becomes a life and death question for all civilized nations, by industries that no longer work up indigenous raw material, but raw material drawn from the remotest zones. Wait, let's read this again. I honestly don't understand where his point is. They are dislodged by new industries. Okay, the old one are being replaced by the new one, whose introduction becomes a life and death question for all civilized nations. Okay, so they need to be in all civilized nations, is what he means, by industries that no longer work up indigenous raw material, but raw material drawn from the remotest zones. Okay, so I can have a coal factory in a place where there is no coal, he's saying. Well, okay, you can transport it there. That will open up a job for transportation. What's the... Industries whose products are consumed, not only at home, but in every quarter of the globe. In place of the old ones satisfied by the production of the country, we find new ones, requiring for their satisfaction the products of distant lands and climes. Okay, in place of the old local and national seclusion and self-sufficiency, we have intercourse in every direction, universal interdependence of nations. And this is wrong. What the fuck is self-sufficiency, man? What does he mean? Well, what if you're starving to death and you have the possibility to go to like help, how do they call, a nation that is close by to you? I forgot the word. Neighboring nation. So what if your people are starving to death and you have a neighboring nation which is doing very well economically? Will you not go there to open up trade? I mean, what is this self-sufficiency? What if you were born in the desert? You have nothing, no product. This is stupid, man. In the place of the old, this is dumb. And as in material, so also as intellectual production. Is there something more right than intellectual production, man? It's like I read one book from a different culture which has nothing to do with me. I learn new things. What is wrong with intellectual production? Like, how stupid is this guy? So also in intellectual production. This isn't wrong. You want to read as many books as possible. The intellectual creations of individual nations become common property. National one-sidedness and narrow-mindedness become more and more impossible. And from the numerous national and local literature, there arises a world literature. And this is wrong because, I don't understand, because it's unpatriotic, unnationalist. I don't understand. Why would this be a mistake? The more you know, the better. Why haven't there, up to that time, have been a world literature? You want a world literature. Stupid motherfucker. The bourgeoisie, by the rapid improvement of all instruments of production, by the immensely facilitated means of communication, draws all, even the most barbarian nations, into civilization. Well, God bless, motherfucker. Why? Do you want barbarian nations? All he's done so far is complimenting the bourgeoisie, but saying that, for example, the only reason why this has happened has been because of money. So this is what he's saying. All of the development has happened specifically only because of money, because of people's desire to get richer, or because of a group's desire, which is the bourgeoisie, to get richer. But it's like, look at all of the things that have happened. Even the most barbarian nations turn into civilization. What are you, blind? You have no more savagery. Is this a bad thing? Even if it was so that all of it has happened from the bourgeoisie and for the bourgeoisie. Even if it is so that rich people have been the radical, I don't know, the radical group that has moved the world forward. Even if that is the case, which I don't see to be, but even if that is the case, look at what they have brought about and look at what your ideas will bring about. It's like you won't even make barbaric nations anymore. You'll just make genocidal nations. How stupid can you get, man? The cheap prices of commodities are the heavy artillery with which it forces the barbarians' intensely obstinated hatred of foreigners to capitulate. It compels all nations, on pain of extinction, to adopt the bourgeoisie mode of production. which is not wrong. It compels them to introduce what it calls civilization into their midst, i.e., this is meaning to become bourgeoisie themselves. In one word, it creates a world after its own image. Right, this would be wrong if the bourgeoisie would be all that there was, which it isn't. This would be wrong. This, in one word, it creates a world after its own image. This would be wrong if the bourgeoisie was all that it existed, but it isn't. And the bourgeoisie is not the only thing by which everything else has happened. It's actually incorrect. There's so much sacrifice, man. There's so much sacrifice put into making things right. How about every war that has been fought? Stupid motherfucker. So many people have died for you to be able to come up with this monstrosity. Look at this shit. A real person. But the thing that bothers me the most is that people actually listen to this. It's like, yes, all wars are being fought just for economical purposes. It's like, I don't know how blind you have to be to say that. I don't understand. There are a lot which have been fought for that reason, but not all of them. What do you call what is it? The intervention of the U.S. military during the First or the Second World War. The Second World War, I should say. When the Marines stormed Normandy and they went to Okinawa and whatever. What do you call those? Dumb. This is dumb. This is dumb. You should have never be given the microphone. Or at least you should never be heard. So like other people should never follow you. You say what you say, okay, but I don't follow you. I say you're stupid. You speak loudly in a microphone, I say, I heard you, but I won't follow what you're saying because this is disgusting shit. Creates a world after its own image. Piece of garbage. The bourgeoisie has subjected the country to the rulers of the towns. It has created enormous cities, has greatly increased the urban population as compared with the rural, and has thus rescued a considerable part of the population from idiocy of rural life. Just as it has made the country dependent on the towns, so it has made barbarians and semi-barbarian countries dependent on a civilized one. Nations of peasants or nations of bourgeoisie, the East on the West. Okay, so this is not a bad thing, because you want to get civilized. The bourgeoisie keeps more and more doing away with the scattered state of the population, of the means of production and of property. It has agglomerated population, centralized the means of production, and has concentrated property in a few hands. So it has created monopoly, is what he's saying. Now, this is something that I don't necessarily disagree with. So, here's what I think. I think that this is true, just as I said before. So my boss, for the same project that we finish, earns at least 10 times as much as, at least, I'm being very generous here. It's probably 50 or 100 times as much as me. It's like, this I don't see as fair. But the idea is that not the whole thing is like that. Because I'm not complaining about my work. I'm only saying that there are people who get very rich, and I do see that. I do see that everywhere. So I do see that in the fact that somebody has like a flashing red Ferrari, and another one has like a breaking down, I don't know what car of the 2000s, or probably even earlier time of production than that. It's like, I see this. What I disagree is that it's evil. It's like, if you want to change it, you have to improve it. Because the communists say that because it's all a class struggle, then there shouldn't be any class. Well, that's wrong. First of all, because it isn't all class struggle. And the second one is because class struggle is not to be eradicated. It's to be improved. Make it so that there isn't such a great gap, but not to remove class altogether, because that's insane. So I do think that it has a tendency to create monopoly. I do think this. I actually don't disagree here. I disagree with what he means, but not with what he says. The necessary consequence of this was political centralization. Independent or but loosely connected provinces. What? Independent or but loosely? What the fuck is this kind of syntax, man? Independent or but loosely connected provinces. So I'm gonna remove but here. Independent or loosely connected provinces with separate interests, laws, government, system of taxation became lumped together into one nation, with one government, one code of laws, one national class interest, one frontier, and one custom tariff. Okay. Okay. And this is wrong. Of course, according to him, this is wrong. The bourgeoisie, during its rule of scarce 100 years, the bourgeoisie, during its rule of scarce 100 years, has created more massive and more colossal productive forces than have all the preceding generations together. Which is, I don't even understand how the fuck are you going against them. You're saying it with your own words. What are you doing? Giving the devil his due? Is that what you think you're doing? Subjection of nature's forces to man, machinery, application of chemistry to industry and agriculture, steam navigation and everything else. What earlier century had even a presentiment that such productive... Okay, well, the earlier centuries people were very dumb, D-U-M-B, dumb, ignorant. They knew nothing. Even your followers know nothing. Imagine them. It's like they were nothing, zero things. Illiteracy was like 95% of the population. Can't read. Now reading is a nuisance. Anyhow, we see then the means of production and of exchange on whose foundation the bourgeoisie built itself up were generated in feudal society. But everything was built on feudal society. So that's how society evolved. We were hunter-gatherers, we became invested in agriculture, so there was feudalism and then industrialism. Well, what does this mean? Everything was based in feudal society, from its revolution and onward. At a certain stage in the development of these means of production and of exchange, the conditions under which feudal society produced and exchanged, the feudal organization of agriculture and manufacturing and industry, in one word, the feudal relations of property became no longer compatible with the already developed productive forces. They became so many fetters. They had to be burst asunder, they were burst asunder, which is a good thing. I mean, this man is doing more harm to his ideology than good. I want to see the point in which this turns. It's like, I want to see the point in which he actually goes out and says the ideas that he has. I actually want to see that. It's like, what is the sentence that he turns the whole thing aside? It's like he's making so many compliments to capitalism or to the bourgeoisie. All of these things are good things, but how does he undo all of them? So it's like, feudal relations had to be burst asunder. They were burst asunder, which is a good thing. Feudal relations are better than the previous ones, but they're not as good as the ones that come after it. So that they were burst asunder is a good thing. Into their place stepped free competition, accompanied by a social and political constitution adapted in it, and the economic and political sway of the bourgeoisie class. The powerful and, what he's saying here is that the rich are the powerful. The rich decide. Free competition, accompanied by social and political constitution, and the economic and political sway of the bourgeoisie class. Well, you want to have a free trade market. Why would you not want to have a free trade market? A similar movement is going on before our own eyes. Modern bourgeoisie society, with its relations of production, of exchange, and of property, it's like he means to destroy the thing. But the scary thing is that I don't read the part in which people actually listen to this. It's like what he's saying is that you should undo the rich class. You should unmake them. You should break them down into what people actually are, and not what they have been lied to be. So like all of the freedoms that you have, this is I may be misreading into this. I just don't get it. All of the freedoms that you have are actually built by the bourgeoisie moving forward, which is incorrect, although it has had a massive influence. Now I say to you, if there is a lot of freedom gained in the world that you live in, why would you not want that? Why are you against freedom? Why are you not for improving, but you are for destroying? You are for taking away the capitalist ideology and implementation. You are to unmaking them. I don't know how to say. It's like to bring everything down to its root core, which you personally have considered that the development from the core up to this point is simply class struggle, which is incorrect. There's so many other things. So I don't know if I should I don't know. I've been an hour in. It's an hour 11 minutes that I'm doing this, so I think I should continue tomorrow. 18, 19, 20, 21. That's a lot of this video is gonna go for 2 hours if I continue. A similar movement is going on. Let's read this paragraph as well and then leave it at page 18. A similar movement is going on before our eyes. Modern bourgeoisie society, with its relations of production, exchange, society, gigantic, is like the sorcerer who is no longer able to control the powers of the netherworld, whom he has called up by his spells. Which is right? I don't know if this is right. Is this right? For many a decade past, the history of industry and commerce is but the history of the revolt of modern productive forces against modern conditions of productions. So again, his idea is still oppressor and oppressed. So for many a decade past, the history of industry and commerce is but the history of the revolt of, so it's like the conflict of modern productive forces against modern conditions of productions. So what is the workplace in which you work? Against the property relations that are conditions for the existence of the bourgeoisie and of its rule. It is enough to mention the commercial crisis that by their periodical return put the existence of the entire bourgeoisie society on its trial, each time more threateningly. In this crisis, a great part not only of the existing products, but also of the previously created productive forces are periodically destroyed. In this crisis, a great part not only of the existing products, but also of the previously created productive forces are periodically destroyed. Okay, in this crisis, there breaks out an epidemic that in all earlier epochs would have seen an absurdity. The epidemic of overproduction. Yes, and this is a bad thing. Just don't be obese. There is a lot of food, okay. Don't eat all of it. You are not being forced to eat it. Society suddenly finds itself put back into a state of momentary barbarism. It appears as if a famine, a universal law of devastation, had cut off the supply of every means of subsistence. Industry and commerce seem to be destroyed. And why? Because there is too much civilization. No, what? No, it isn't. What's he saying? Society suddenly, it appears as if a famine, a universal war, had cut off the supply of every means of subsistence. Too much means of substances, too much industry, too much commerce. Well, no, it's not right. What does he mean? Is this like for example, the natural resources crisis, for example? It's like there are too many cars, but there isn't enough oil and gas for them. Is this what it means? I don't understand. Well, in either case, it would be incorrect, even if there is no more oil, even if there is too much oil. So either one of the cases is incorrect. If there's too much food, just don't eat. If there's too many cars and little oil, we will change the way how cars operate. A new technology will come by. People will get smarter. You don't need that's not how it works, man. You can change. You can always change. That's the point. The productive forces at the disposal of society no longer tend to further the development of these conditions of bourgeoisie property. On the contrary, they have become too powerful for these conditions by which they are fettered, and so soon as they overcome these fetters, they bring disorder into the whole of the bourgeoisie society, endanger the existence of bourgeoisie property. The conditions of bourgeoisie society are too narrow to comprise the wealth created by them. And how does the bourgeoisie get over these crises? On the one hand, by enforced destruction of a mass of productive forces, on the other, by the conquest of new markets, and by the more thorough exploitation of the old ones. That is to say, by paving the way for more extensive and more destructive crises, and by diminishing the means whereby crises are prevented. So, here's an example, what he means here. He means that there is a lot of product and not a lot of means to make this product, to make all of this product. So, for example, there are too many people who want to buy a PlayStation, and there are very few PlayStations being sold because the company could simply not create as much. So now, the people who have bought the computers, for example, they have found a way how to abuse the system so that it hurts the company. This is basically what I'm hearing here. So the companies cannot withhold the market. So they either go and find new markets for them to exploit, says the man, which I disagree. Either they find new markets, or that they create a way how to destroy the ones that currently exist. For example, the COVID disease. For a year and something, everything went quiet for civilized countries. There was no movement of people. So I don't know if that's the case, though. I don't know if COVID has been created in the lab so that people could take a step back from economy. I don't think that's the case. It's like, I don't see this. Wars, does he mean wars? You get to fight another country just so that you can bring its economy down, so that then you can start working again as a bourgeoisie and then creating more overproduction? It's like, what does he mean here? Anyhow, I disagree with you, man, in every possible way. I think that this is a horrible work. I think that the implementation of this work has very clearly shown that you are wrong. It's like in every possible sense of the word, you are wrong. You are wrong, this is evil, this will have no positive effect whatsoever. There is nothing right about what you're doing here, and, well, I hope you die and burn in hell in anguish. I don't know what to say. I just disagree with everything. All right, we will continue tomorrow, reading from page 18 to 21, I think, 34 pages. This is like a reaction series that I'm doing. Not a reactionist, in case you heard that wrong. I don't know what reactionist mean, but a reaction series. So this is the first episode, tomorrow is going to be the second, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to I'm gonna be doing this for a while. I don't know how many pages there are. 67 pages. Demand of the Communist Party in Germany, which is nothing. So like 68 pages, 21, so that's like 40 pages. If I do about 5 per day, should be something around 8 days, like a week, 8 days, 10 days maybe, I don't know. So whatever. Okay, I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye bye.